No, I think I just turned on the recording. That might have been the little hiccup
Okay,
there.
okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Money Matters series, Building Blocks of Equity. Thank you for having me, Nikki, and Richmond Neighborhood Housing Services. I'm a real estate broker in California, mostly in the Bay Area. And my background, I started in mortgage. So about 15 years ago, I started in the mortgage industry in wholesale and retail, and working on the lending side, and then transitioned um, about 4 years ago to the real estate side and acquired my broker's license. And in acquiring my real estate broker's license, one thing that is very important to myself as well as my agents at Cotton Realty is education. So we increase our business through referral by educating the community and being involved in the community of which we do business. And in addition to that education, I'm also the president of Women's Council of Associated Real Property Brokers, which is a nonprofit that also reaches out to the community throughout the United States. We're part of a local chapter. We're a local chapter of a national organization that has our boots on the ground, and we're out reaching out to the community and educating the community about home ownership and its possibilities. So tonight we are talking about building. And so this is basically a little turn from the normal workshops that you've seen as far as first time home ownership and buying a home. This is focused on building a home. So how I got started in this is my uncle is a developer, and I started working with him on a development project. Um, a multiple project where we took one parcel and divided that parcel of land into multiple parcels to build multiple properties. And in that process, and me having a mortgage background, I started to research how individuals could do this themselves for their own homes, especially in this market in California, where it's a very competitive market. So for a first-time home buyer, you are up against many different obstacles in buying a home. First, you have to find your down payment, which Richmond Neighborhood Housing is here to help you with. And then you have to write offers, and sometimes you're competing with all cash offers, or sometimes you are competing on a market of homes that need repair. And as a first-time home buyer, everybody doesn't always have those funds needed for repair. So then the next thing, the creative thing to do would be to find land. And so in finding land, there's various obstacles that go into building a home, and it's not for everyone. But the good thing to know is it is available, and it's available for someone who wants to build their own house and live in it to get financing and to actually do that. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, building blocks of equity. So, I think that building homes is a new movement that we need to consider in our communities in order to basically find an equitable space in real estate. So, just because it's hard in the market doesn't mean that we give up. We have to find ways of creating opportunities for ourselves. So, building blocks of equity is a movement. It has a goal of connecting landowners, developers, contractors, and buyers to help make this process as seamless as possible. So Nikki has already told you a little bit about Richmond Neighborhood Housing, and I told you a little bit about my brokerage. And basically, we are coming together to educate the community. Richmond Neighborhood Housing Services, as Nikki mentioned, have expanded outside of Richmond into the East Bay. They're building out affordable homes in the West Oakland area. And so, myself as a real estate broker, I'm working with various organizations such as this one so that we can educate the community and also find resources when they become available to us, so that our community knows what's going on before we just see a new development pop up and wonder what happened, and why weren't we informed. So we're out here keeping up with what's going on in the community to inform the citizens of these cities, to get involved, take part. Even if you're not a developer, you may be a contractor looking at this presentation and want to get involved. You may be an architect that's looking at this presentation and want to get involved. So this movement is for all of a variety of different vendors that can come together and help us accomplish goals within our community. So our goal for today is to talk about buying land to build a house, review steps in building a house, review cost line items and financing options. So buying land to build a house. How much does it cost to buy land to build a house? So basically, the first thing you want to do is identify an area of which you would want to build a house. And in identifying that area, you also want to be research the market value of that area, so that the cost to actually build the house will put you in an equitable position. You don't want to build a house that is going to cost $500,000 to build in a market where the top sales are 450,000. So even though it took 500 to build the house and it's a lovely house, you want it to be in line with the market area. Okay. Um, Also, in buying land to build a house, you want to check the zoning and the condition of the property. So when you're checking zoning, you're basically checking to see if you buy land, is it zoned for a residential property? Or if you're building a fourplex, a 4-unit building, is it zoned for 4 units? So zoning is very important. And you want to see if it already has utilities or infrastructure. So there's undeveloped land that may need additional work, such as utilities, electric, gas, and plumbing. And then there's land that already has that set in place. So whether the utilities are underground or not can mean a certain varied timelines of your build. So if you already have the utilities in, it'll take you a shorter amount to build than if there's no utilities at all, and you're starting from the ground up. That could take years. I had mentioned earlier, I was working on a project. It's in Rodeo, and it literally took 3 years to complete all of the approvals and the process for to get the utilities in place so that the land can be divided and we could start building. And also you need to check if you need to demolish an existing structure. I had a client that basically had a structure on land, and they were going to build from that structure, but the city actually, after they purchased it, required them to demolish the structure because of the condition of the foundation. So they end up demolishing the structure, but again, they still have the utilities in place because there was previously a house there, but they had to build from the ground up. So there's a lot of due diligence in finding the land before you build. So we're going to get into the process of building a home, but you'll hear in this arena, you'll hear hard cost and soft cost. So I wanted to give some examples of what hard costs and soft costs are. Hard costs would be your things that go into the actual build of the home, the labor, the electrical, plumbing, structural materials, where your soft cost is more administrative. So architectural services, a site analysis, a survey. Sometimes they do the financing fees, administrative fees, and sometimes they do with site analysis, they'll do soil tests. So they have to actually test the dirt and make sure that it is in the, you know, it's a healthy soil so that you can actually build and there won't be any issues in the future with the soil. So there's a lot that goes into it. So steps in building a house. So I know you hear me saying, I keep saying there's a lot that goes into it. And that's why what I'll talk about in a minute is one of the financing companies that offer financing for these builds will also provide a project manager through this process. So the project manager is very instrumental in basically helping you understand the process and what's going on in the process, as well as keeping up with the contractors and making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do in a timely fashion. In starting off in building a house, I wouldn't say to build a mansion. Um, um, if you're not experienced, something, some investors, they keep it really simple. A lot of my investors that I see that are very successful, they keep with a very simple plan: a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, um, um, 4 bedroom, 2.5 bath, but they keep with a pretty specific layout. And so two of my developers are in the North Richmond area. So if you drive through North Richmond and you see the older houses versus the newer houses in the area, you'll see that the newer houses all have a certain look to them. And so what they've done, a lot of developers that are working in the North Richmond area, they're sticking to what works. So they're keeping to the plans that have already been improved in the past by the county, and they're sticking with those layouts and building along those lines and not going too far left or right out of that because they know that it's been approved in the past. So as an investor, it's definitely good to stick with what's working, because things that are that are too outlandish, people in the community can object to it or protest against you building it because it's not consistent with the community, and it could be troublesome and cost you money and time. So the first thing, of course, in building a house is creating a budget. So you want to work with a contractor to create a budget for your build. And then you purchase land. I'll be sharing some listings later in this presentation to give you a look at the land, so a couple pieces of land that's available on the market and how much it costs. Then you want to choose a construction method. So I had one client that was planning to build a modular home. So what is a modular home versus traditional stick framing home? So traditional stick framing home is basically when the framing of the home is actually built there on site at the location of the land. And so you're building it from the ground up. Whereas modular, you're actually starting the framework of the house in a warehouse. And so it's not a mobile home where you're actually just driving in a house and parking it on the land. They're actually building the framing of the home in a warehouse, which helps to prevent the wood from weather damage, being outside. So that's basically a positive side of the modular. And also you have to look at the quality of the modular. So if you go with a modular home where you're working with a company that is putting together the framing of your house at an offsite, you want to talk to the contractor and make sure that they're using quality material, because all modular companies don't use the same types of material. You want to make sure that their insulation and all their items that they're using to build the framework is of quality and and has great strength. So that is something that is important to understand. But these are the two more common ways. I had one client that was looking at doing a modular because he thought it was the easier way to go. And then lo and behold, the land that he purchased, right next to the land he purchased, was another investor who was building a home, and it was stick frame. And the stick frame and modular actually ended up being very similar in price. And he ended up working with that actual investor and using their contractor to stick with the stick framing. So those are the two options that are commonly used. Next is develop plans or designs. So you have to work with an architect to develop the plans and designs for your home. It's important that the architect is familiar with the planning requirements for your particular city or county. For instance, there was one architect that did plans in Contra Costa County, but he had most of his experience doing designs in Alameda County. And Alameda County and Contra Costa County have different guidelines on their plans and design requirements. So it's important that when you are looking at an architect, that they are familiar with the city of which you're building. And that helps with getting the plans approved. Then you obtain permits and inspections. There's various different inspections that go on throughout the process of building a home. I'm very project management driven, and I have to tell you that that's the one thing that kind of drives me crazy with working with various different developers. There's no A to Z checklist, although I'm working to build one. There's no A to Z checklist on what inspections are required on a build and how the process flows. So, so there's various different inspections in the county or the city. I keep mentioning county because there's some unincorporated areas such as Rodeo and North Richmond and El Sobrante that are unincorporated, and those inspections and permits have to be done straight to the county versus through the city if you're like building in the city of Richmond or in the city of Berkeley, Oakland. So there's different people that you will have to report to based on where you're building. So you're obtaining permits and inspections. And also I want to mention too, that when you're buying land, which we'll see later, sometimes the land is sold with plans. So they may already have plans to build, and they may already have some of the permitting approved. And so the pricing on land may vary based on if the seller already has these plans. And so it's like a catch-22 because the plans may not be what you particularly wanted to build, but if you were interested in their plans, it could save you up to a year of time to build and cost because they already have those plans approved. So, so then you could possibly look at their plans and consider working with their architect, maybe to make slight changes, or go forward with the plans that they have set in motion. You also will need to look at purchasing construction insurance and then begin in construction. Once you're finished with construction, you have to obtain what's called a final certificate of occupancy. So the final inspection allows you to basically occupy the property. So you can't occupy the property without the house being complete. You have to have the final inspection, which includes different entities such as PG&E, the fire department. They have to check on sprinklers, and various different entities are involved. East Bay Mud for water. So various different entities are involved with obtaining your final inspection. And then also with your new build, there's a certain level of landscaping that is required for the final inspection. So you can't just leave a pile of dirt in the front yard after you're finished with your build. Also, I just want to note too that you can comment, you can unmute yourself or comment. I'm free to take questions as we go along. I know this is a lot of information, and sometimes when people hold their questions to the end, they forget what the purpose of their question really was as we go through so much information in the presentation.
And Ria, I actually have a question. And since we have a smaller group, we can, possibly make this a dialogue. How many of you are looking at this from the perspective of wanting to build your own home to live in versus wanting to build a home to maybe sell? Or the last part, you want to be the builder and or developer? How are you, taking in this information and from what perspective? So to Ria's point, you're welcome to open up your microphone to answer, and that may help guide Ria in the presentation. And to unmute, you just, is that someone? Go right ahead.
It's Gail. I didn't know what the meeting was about, so But because I actually need to find an attorney, I have lost some money on doing a land development with someone out of state. So I'm learning a lot of stuff. But if I was to ever attempt to do it again, um, I think I would want to do maybe like a triplex or duplex, um, live in one, or a single family home with an ADU and attached in the back. So, Ria, I'm going to call you tomorrow and maybe you can give me some advice. This woman is in jail right now, but
Oh, goodness. I was just going to ask, is the land development, was it multiple parcels or it
it
was,
was going to be 6 luxury homes in Florida. I
oh,
mean, I can only laugh at it. I lost a lot of money, but
right.
I can only laugh at it now because it's been a while. And thank God she's in jail, and she's in jail for wire fraud with a whole nother situation.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, that's whoo, that's a
Yeah.
good one. But yeah, feel free to call me. My information is on all the slides. I have my phone number and my email. Yeah, and this is basically why, as a real estate broker and looking to invest and build, that I've taken this time to educate people and look into this process further myself. Um, I too have lost money in the beginning stages on development, and so yeah, I know it wasn't as extreme as you your situation is, but yeah, it's definitely something that is equitable, but you have to be educated and know where you are in that process so that you're not taken advantage of.
Yes. Okay.
And Gail, I just want to thank you for showing up. I don't know what it is, but it must be good. So I'm going to spend my evening with you. So I appreciate you just coming along. And it sounds like you'll get some value out of this evening. So thank you.
For sure. I'm definitely am. Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Anybody else want to share their interest in before we move forward and what brought you here today?
Hi, this is Sandra. And similar with me, I'm just looking to be educated to potentially do something for myself to live in at first
What area are you in? What part of the Bay Area?
in Richmond.
Richmond. Oh, great. Cool. Okay. Anybody else before we move forward? Okay. So review steps in building a house, a closer look. So this is more on the previous slide was more a larger scale overview. This is more on the construction side. So just review some steps in building a house and taking a closer look. One thing that I find too, that if you are working with the city or the county, even if you're not the contractor, they will work with you to keep you updated on the process and the steps. Again, there's no clear-cut way to follow where you are in the process, but they can kind of guide you along the way as you're going through the steps of construction. So, of course, it starts off with preparing the construction site. You have to have a foundation to build on. So, pouring or laying the foundation, and the pricing on that is important to look at. I had a developer recently that some they didn't the person that was laying the foundation didn't prepare for the type of parcel that it was, and their foundation cost ended up being more than what they had thought. So it's very important that you have various different bids, and if you're working with a general contractor that is subcontracting, you know who they're using and do your due diligence on that part. And the financer for that will do so as well. There's an application process that the contractors will have to go through in order to get approved with the financer to do the build. And we'll talk about the financing in just a minute. So then you start off with the rough framing, complete rough plumbing, electrical, heating and air conditioning, install insulation, And then also there's various different things you want to be conscious of in the cities that you're building. For instance, in Berkeley recently, they have a new ordinance where they are not allowing um, gas in their new builds. So if you have a stove, it has to be electric. And so I don't know how important that a gas stove is for you, but I like gas stoves. So things like that is important to be aware of. Complete drywall and interior fixtures, and then start exterior finishes. Finish interior trim, install exterior walkways and driveways. Then you install the hard surface flooring, countertops, and complete exterior grading. It's important to, I think I'll talk about this a little later, that when you're looking at your fixtures, if you're doing it for investment, one of the mistakes that I've seen developers make is some of the fixtures that they put into the home, they go top of the line and don't take into consideration the market of which they're building. So I'm not saying put crappy stuff into a home, but you want to make sure that the fixtures that you're putting in and the bottom line price is going to be conducive to the market. So an appraiser is not going to appraise your house for more because of the top of the line fixtures if the market value for that community is lower than what you want to sell the house for. So there will be some balance. For instance, the recent developments that I've done in North Richmond, they're the highest comps in the area because they're new developments. So they are bringing up the value in the areas. However, you don't want to go too extreme on those costs and think that you'll be compensated in value. Okay, so then, the end part of it is installing like your mirrors, shower doors, finished flooring, exterior landscaping, and then you do the final walkthrough or the final inspection. I just had a developer do their final inspection last week, and apparently they had been developing in the past, but just got back into it like 10 years. It's like a 10-year gap in between. And they missed an inspection of the shower pan of the shower. And the inspector is no longer with the county, but apparently he didn't check it off. And so they are actually requiring him to break open the shower walls and do the inspection this week. Then they have to pay to close the wall back up and then go through their final inspection again. So, so it's very important. They were doing this themselves and they were financing it themselves. So they don't have a project manager. They didn't have, it's like a mom and dad team. So they had cash. So they don't have anybody in place as a project manager to really, had guided them through this process. And so, and I actually met them through another developer. So it's really important to, have somebody experienced on your team. Okay, so now we're getting to the good part. So I am really excited about this product. This product was on hold for about maybe 3 months during the pandemic, and now it's back. But this is the FHA one-time construction to perm loan. This is an awesome loan program because it allows you to purchase the land and build the home and finance it all in one walk. So in the past, you may have heard people that have purchased the land, and then after they purchased the land, they were looking for financing and they purchased the land all cash because they couldn't find anyone to do a land loan. Because usually when you're purchasing land, the loan amounts are pretty low and it's hard to find the loans for those. Some people usually do private loans to purchase the land. But with this loan, you basically purchase the land and you have to price out the construction of the build because the financer through this is an FHA government loan, the financer is going to give all of that money in one whop, and then you take the total. So you roll in the home and the loan purchase into one loan. And then from that amount, you're putting 3.5% down. Okay. So this is an awesome program. So then it says no money down with land equity to cover 3.5% requirement investment. So basically, again, you're rolling it into the land and the home together. So you're not having to basically purchase the land separately. Gifts allowable for 100% of the down payment and or closing costs. These gifts can be cash or equity in the lot. So basically, the landowner can basically gift you equity towards the down payment. Okay. Up to 6% seller builder contribution for borrowers' closing costs and prepaids. This is a great selling point, because if you have a seller of land who is really motivated to sell their land, they can give you up to 6% of your closing costs and prepaids, which ultimately would cover most of your closing costs, where you're only coming in with 3.5% down. Credit score as low as 620. Again, with the pandemic, sometimes with FHA, the guidelines can change, and that 620 can go up or down based on the climate of the market. But 620 is a starting point for the credit score. Of course, FHA offers flexible underwriting requirements over conventional, and with your typical first-time home buyers, FHA is usually the go-to before conventional because of the minimal down payment and the flexibility in underwriting. There's no reserve requirement, meaning that the reserves would be the cash on hand that you have in liquid savings after the close of escrow. Buyer makes no payments until construction is complete. So you don't make any payments until the construction is complete. However, the interest is built into the purchase. So when they talk about the closing costs and prepaids, those prepaids would be 6 to 9 months of interest that's built while the construction is processed. So although you're not making a mortgage payment, you are still paying interest at some point or another on that time. Close one time upfront before construction begins, and no pre-qualifying once the home is complete. So this is very important, because in the past, for instance, in 2008, the crash of 2008, there were contractors who were building homes. Some lenders pulled out of construction altogether. So if they are construction to perm loans that were separate. So they had the construction loan, and then they went into a permanent loan. But the construction loans the permanent loans were no longer taking construction loans at one point. So if somebody was in a construction loan and they needed to get out of it, they were struggling to find financing, because a lot of the lenders had pulled out to turning their construction loan into a permanent loan. Well, this product avoids that, because you don't have to refinance the house once it's complete. They are basically looking at the market value at the time that you're closing on the loan, the future market value after the house is completed. So there's no concern, or there's no risk at the end of saying, okay, if my house at the end is worth, let's say $595, but it took $610,000 to build, that's not going to stop you from moving forward in completing your project and going forward with living in your home. So I have lenders available, so you can reach out to me and contact me about the lenders that I have available that offer these products. But I know this is not a familiar loan product to the masses, but it is available. And it's an important piece that I'm working to educate the community on, because this will definitely help us in acquiring home ownership through land purchasing. Are there any questions regarding this piece of the financing?
This is Sandra. I'm sorry, can you, I think you said on the second bullet point, there's a no money down with the land equity to cover the cost of that. Is that in lieu of the down payment? the land equity?
Correct. Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
yeah,
I missed that. Thank you.
yeah, yeah, if it's agreed upon with the seller.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, did I hear somebody else? Okay. And again, I can put you in touch with the financing company. They can do a full presentation on this. They can also give you a breakdown of pricing based on the area that you're building in. So they can basically tell you, okay, based on the market of the area and what you're trying to build, they can work backwards and give you an idea of what you're searching for as far as the land and the price point for your land.
Maria, this is, so I have a question for you. And because of some of the experiences we've had with our West Oakland project, we are now developing an emerging developer program because just what you're saying here, there's a lot of education that's needed, especially if you're looking to be a developer. So a
Mhm.
question for you, can you speak a little bit about the holding cost and if you need to consider timing of when you purchase the land versus when you're ready to build? And the type of costs that are involved holding the land till it's ready to be developed. And also, do you have resources if one gets started of fund management, fund control to ensure that the general contractor is one paid equitably, but not at the same time, not overpaid to where you're not guaranteed the project will be completed?
Yes. So what the financing company requires is they have a project manager. So basically, in order to make sure that the contractors are completing their work in a timely fashion and they have draws for the contractor. So they go over when they approve the contractor for it's like if you're doing an appraisal, the appraiser has to have certain licensings and get approved with the lender. Well, so does the contractor. And so in approving the contractor, the lender goes over the draw periods. So they go over the phases of the build and at what points they will give draws. And the contractor has to be okay with it. So that could be, that is one thing that the contractor has to understand, and not all contractors want to do that. So, so it's a process of really before you even finding the land, it's really finding a contractor because they'll use a contractor that you find. You just have to get them approved with the lender. But not all contractors like the draw periods and the process that goes along with this. So you, again, it has to be a team. And that's why I mentioned at the beginning about building blocks of equity being a movement, because we need to have contractors and and lenders that are all going to work together and be down for the cause. And so all contractors aren't. And as far as the holding costs, the lenders will break down what the holding costs are and the interest that's gained over time, and they're basically adding that to the loan, to the end of the loan. So they will break that down, tell you what those costs are, and then they're adding it to the loan. So so that's how they are dealing with those costs, and that you the buyer don't have to deal with those costs during the transaction or during the build. They do have a limit though. They're looking for the house to be built within 9 to 12 months. So you really have to really be like ready to go. And so how do you get past that time frame if you want to really be ready to go? You would extend your contingencies. So part of closing on a land purchase, you have what's called a contingency where you're doing your due diligence in order to make to basically go forward with the purchase. So you would do as much research and background information as you can with the lender while you're in that due diligence period to take away from the time. Even like if you're doing like a soil report, different reports on the land, it's all part of investing in your purchase. So you can extend your loan contingency so that the timing can be a little longer for you when you start the build. Did I answer all of your questions, Nikki? Thanks. So basically, I just wanted to compare the FHA product to a private money lender. So private money lending is, or private institutions that give short-term financing for things like new construction. So with private money lending, there's usually a 12-month financing term. They lend 60% of the future appraised value. So and they lend 80% of the cost to build. So the down payment, at the end of the day, the down payment that's required on private money lending is much greater than that of the FHA 3.5% down. Also, the interest rates. So there's a 14% annual percentage rate average. It could be anywhere from sometimes 8 to 10% with 2 points. So they add points on there. So it's really costly to do private money lending. But a lot of developers use this as a tool because FHA's product is only if you're owner occupying the property. So that last product I showed you is only if you are occupying the property after close of escrow. So of course, it's a great product. Developers wish they could use it, but they can't because it is for primary residents. So then they're left to use cash or use private money lending. So here I just wanted to basically give a scenario. So this is 423 Market Ave in Richmond, California. This is a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath home. It was approximately 1,300 square feet on a 2,500 square foot lot, and it sold in a couple years ago. I think it was 2018. It sold for $475,000. And then I'm going to go a little closer. So the lot for this property the lot cost was $70,000. So if you were an all cash investor or builder, you would have bought the lot for $70,000. The build cost for this lot, for this property was $236,000. So that's like the hard cost. The soft cost, administrative, architectural, all those was $50,000. And then they paid out a total of $25,000 in real estate commissions. So the upfront investment total was $381,000 and their profit was $94,000. This is considering if someone had basically $400,000 in cash. Okay. Now let's look at the profit with a private money loan. So in addition to the cost of the cash, now that you're using a private money loan, you also have the financing cost that you have with holding those funds. So that was an addition, that could be an additional $40,000. So, but you're not coming in with all cash. So the upfront investment was 71,000 and your profit is 64,000. So basically looking at cash versus using financing, you are losing out on about 30,000 of profit. And then the last scenario is our FHA financing. With our FHA financing, you are basically financing everything into the loan. So you have 3.5% that you're putting down. You have your closing cost of $16,000, which could be covered by the seller if you negotiate that. So the total upfront investment is $33,250. And because you are not looking to flip this house, you actually now have a new home. And so if your home, if the upfront investment to build in this scenario was $381,000, you are basically coming in with the equity versus getting a profit off the sale. So if your house was appraised at $475,000, it took $381,000 to build approximately. You see where the value is in coming in this form, and then you're building equity, of course, over time. I could tell you now, because I'm still selling properties in this neighborhood, that 475 value from a couple of years ago is definitely a good 550. I would say that house right now would easily go for 550,000, and it was built just a couple of years ago. Is there any questions regarding this slide from anyone? Do you see the value in building yourself versus purchasing someone who just had built a home? You're basically, when you're purchasing from someone who just built the home, you're basically buying into the equity, their profit, whereas you're saving if you build from scratch. And I mean, saving is relative. It takes about 9 to 12 months to build a home, but in this market, it almost takes people 9 to 12 months to even find a house. So in the time that you have taken to actually build, look for a home, and that's turnkey and doesn't have all, doesn't need repairs, you could have actually built a home in that same amount of time. Now, I'm not saying that land is just easily and readily available in a lot of areas, but I have to say in some areas, like someone mentioned, Sandra, I think you mentioned Richmond, there is a lot of land availability in Richmond. A lot of landowners are just holding on to their land, so you won't see it on the open market. I have some developers or landowners that I've met because they've seen me work through Richmond. They have land for sale, but they don't want to put it on the market. They're just holding it until they find a time to put it on the market when it's valuable for them, but that doesn't mean that they won't still negotiate. So I do have list of land opportunities in Richmond, and I will periodically mail out to them to see if they're interested in purchasing. And some of them will reach out to me. For instance, there's a lady near the Richmond BART station. She has 3 lots that are all side by side to one another, and she owns a ton of land and property in Oakland and in Richmond. And so she won't put it on the open market, but if I came to her and said I had somebody to buy that wanted to buy her land, she would negotiate. So that's what, I mean, initially when landowners buy land and they're just sitting on it and you see a lot of vacant lots, they're just, holding on, just waiting for that opportune time to make their big profit. Any questions on this part? Okay, cool. So now I want to share with you some property that's currently on the market. This is a lot that is on the market. It is 200 Market Ave. It's a $130,000 list price. It's been on the market for 23 days. One thing that I saw that was attractive about this lot is that it's 5,000 square feet. So I had mentioned with the other property on Market Ave, it was 2,500 square feet and it sold for 70,000. So this is basically 2 lots in one. So the next thing, if someone was interested in this property, the first thing that I would look at in this particular lot is seeing what the zoning is. Can I build a duplex? So if most houses in this area are on a 2,500 square foot lot, maybe I want to build a duplex on this property. So then I'm going to look at what it's zoned for. Or maybe I want to build a house and have an accessory dwelling unit or an in-law unit. So I'm going to look at the zoning and see what are the possibilities for this lot. Or some developers may decide that they want to take this 5,000 square foot lot, split it into 2 lots and build 2 houses. So those are the type of things that that you basically initially as an investor would look at as far as developing. This lot here's another one. It's on Buena Vista Ave in Richmond. It's listed at 165,000. It shows the original price was 188,000 and now it's listed at 165. So they lowered the list price. So since they lowered the list price as a real estate broker, what that tells me is that it's negotiable. So this lot is not flat. The last lot we saw was on flat land. This land is on sloped. So being that it's on slope land, the architecture and the planning is going to be a little more detailed because it's not flat. And so that would initially sometimes turn people off, like, oh, it's not flat land, this is going to be hard for me. But on the comments at the bottom, what you'll see is they have architectural plans for a single family house plus a 2-bedroom second dwelling unit. So they already have plans. So they've already done some of the pre-work for you to get the plans for a house with an in-law unit that can bring in income. So that's a plus. It says survey, soil, and stone water report available. So they've done some pre-work for you there. And then they have their plans approved. So their planning approval is good until April 2021. And sometimes that can be extended, but they already have the plans approved. And usually once you get your plans approved, they're only good for a year. So, so they are motivated to get started with this build or sell this before their plans are expired because they had to pay money to get those plans approved. And then it says short walk to quaint downtown Point Richmond. So that's just another, and then this is an 8,400 square foot lot. So that's a nice size lot. They didn't say how big the home was though, but that can be obtained. And so now that basically concludes my presentation. I am open for additional questions. I know people would want to maybe contact me offline because your situations are all unique and may take more conversation. So here's my contact information. I would say the next steps would be to reach out to me and get in contact to see what your personal goals are. And then we can talk about financing options based on what your goals are. And I have referral sources that I can share with you based on what your needs are.
I have a question. On the last slot of the 130,000, with those plans already built and with the plans and all the other stuff they already did, is that included in the 168,000?
Right. Mhm. Correct.
Okay. I don't know much about Richmond in the area, so I would need to drive by, but it seems like it must be a nicer area. The fact that it's on a slope.
Yeah. Where are you from?
I'm in Oakland.
Oh, you're in Oakland. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Any other questions?
Well,
Maria,
I like the FHA part of it. It's something, it sounds interesting.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, Maria, I was just going to ask if we could maybe spend a little time for the folks on the phone. Like, what would it be tangible? What would they need to have to even pursue something? So, let's say one of these lots they have interest in. What would be some of the initial things that they would have to um, make sure that they had to even go down the route of the FHA loan as far as assets in the bank? I think you already mentioned credit score, but are there any other qualifiers that they would need to prepare for?
So basically it would be similar to your typical lending. So FHA, they're looking at your credit score again, 620. There's no reserve requirement. So that's basically referring to your reserves after you close escrow. But I would say, even though they promote that, I would say it depends. I would get the pre-approval would be the first step. Because based on where your score follows, when you do FHA, you're usually doing it through a computer underwriting system. And based on the whole picture, as far as your past history, maybe some lates or collections, the computer system may require you to have some reserves based on your payment history in the past. So, so it would all definitely start off with a pre-approval. And then with this particular lot right here, I'd reach out to the listing agent and find out, for my buyer, I would find out what contractor they were working with. Why are they selling after the plans were approved? Why aren't they moving forward with the project? A lot of times it's because they either ran out of money or something happened. Sometimes they find a better project and they want to drop one project so they can take advantage of another. So there's various different ways, but I would ask why they're dropping the project and then what contractor they were working with to see if they already had some type of cost estimates on the build so that we can share it with the lender, and the lender would, and then also look at what the homes are selling for in the area. So I would look this, it says single family house, but it didn't say how many bedrooms. It just says that the second unit has 2 bedrooms. So I would comp out and look at comparable sales, which I call comp out. Look at comparable sales in the area to make sure that what you're building in that area is comparable to what other homes are selling for in the area. So that's not like an over improvement for the area. But to start off, you're looking at your credit score. You're looking at your, if let's say the total cost was 600,000, you're looking at 3.5% down of that 600,000 plus your closing cost, which is usually around another 3% of that 600,000. So we're looking at down payment and closing costs, credit score, your debt to income ratio, meaning how much you make versus your debt, usually needs to be around 45%. So they don't want your mortgage with whatever is reporting on your credit report to be more than 45% of your gross income. So those are some of the things that you would initially look at.
And are any of the closing cost fees or any of that, are they able to have it financed, or is all cash money that has to come to the table?
Yeah, so the closing costs will need to be paid at the closing. What they can include in the purchase is the interest that's gained while the interest that's gained that was supposed to be paid while it's building, they can put that into purchase, but you would need to come to the table with the closing costs. And again, they mentioned that the seller can cover closing costs too. So if you price it out and make an offer that is attractive to the seller, then you can incorporate in those closing costs that they can cover. So there's various different ways. I have a lender that I work with out of Texas that is really good at negotiating and giving you different scenarios to make the deal attractive for you.
Would they include if it was a accessory dwelling or ADU? Also, do they take in that rent amount as part of your monthly income?
That's a good question. That is a good question. I would have to ask the lender that because I know they do single family units and you can do ADU units, but I'm not sure if you can take the rents, and because that falls in line of FHA requirements. FHA would usually allow you, and it's going to be a permitted unit. So I would assume so, but I would confirm that with my lender.
And I'm glad you're bringing up the ADU because we're also doing work with the city of Richmond of creating, not the city of Richmond, but the city of Oakland, developing their ADU program for homeowners focused on people of color. And what we're finding is that the GSEs, government sponsors or entities like Freddie, Fannie, won't, so FHA may or may not be a part of this, but they won't calculate the rents if there's no history. So typically they need at least 2 years of history of that unit performing with rental income. So I don't know if FHA would have that same restriction. But we're also too working. So if any of you have interest in maybe real, we can talk offline, but we're also working with the lender who's willing to hold the construction loan for a period of time, giving the homeowner the opportunity to build up that history of rents so that they can then, move it over to a residential or retail loan. So people are getting really creative, especially around the ADU space, to try to accommodate. So if you do have interest, let's definitely talk about some resources for you.
Oh yeah, definitely. I have a client that just purchased a home in Havens Court in the Havens Court area of Oakland, and he's looking at financing right now for the ADU. So,
We would
he
love
would.
to have him be a part of our pilot program and outreach. So let's definitely talk.
Oh, yeah, that would be great. That would be great. But yeah, so FHA is a little more lenient than the Fannie and Freddie, where they will allow rents without a 2-year landlord history. So you can, if you were just doing a straight FHA loan and buying a 4-unit property, they would allow you to use rents to qualify without you having 2 years of being a landlord, because typically with the FHA, you're buying as a primary residence. So so they don't expect you to um, have that landlord experience anyway. So FHA is a little more lenient than the conventional in that sense.
How long do you have to live in the property with the FHA loan? How long does that have to be owner occupied?
Most lenders usually say a year.
Oh, okay. And is it okay if you live in the smaller ADU unit versus the main house?
That would be a lender question. So that I would say yes, but that would be a lender question because it's your primary residence and it's permitted. So most of the times I get that question is something that's not permitted. So so then the answer usually would be no. But
Okay.
with this being a new build, then that would be a lender question. But FHA is pretty flexible. So I think if it's legal, then you have some room there.
Okay. Okay. Well,
And it's a great program. It's been around for a really long time, but it's not typically used in California. It's usually used in other states more than California. So so it's kind of like a scary thing to get into because it's unfamiliar. But it's definitely a way to get into the market.
now, what's the name of is it that 203? Is it a 203?
No, it's not the 203K renovation. This is actually called a one-time close construction to perm loan.
Okay.
FHA one-time close.
Okay. Sounds interesting. I will definitely reach out.
Great. So I just want to share my contact information again here. You can take a photo snapshot, screenshot it. And I look forward to hearing from you guys and sharing whatever information or resources that I can provide to you to help you in your process.
Hey, Rhea, would you mind sharing your presentation with the folks that joined us this evening? Would that be okay if we shared the presentation?
Sure. I'll send you the link because I
Okay.
updated it since I had sent it a week ago. So I updated it, the slides. So I'll send you the link and you can share it to everyone.
Okay, so Tisha will reach out to those that attended this evening and make sure you get the link. As I mentioned, we've also recorded this, so it'll be on our YouTube channel. So visit us at richmondnhs.org and then just click the little YouTube button. So please share with your friends. I want to thank Rhea for sharing information because, as she said, many folks in California don't leverage this tool, and a lot of times it's because we don't know. And being in the city of Richmond and Oakland, where there's still a lot of blight, access to vacant land, this is definitely something to consider. And because we advocate for ownership, it can look and feel different to many. So it's worth exploring, and you always want to know what you're saying yes to and what you're saying no to. But with more options, you can make wise decisions. So again, I thank everyone. If there's no more questions, we thank you for being here. You're welcome to drop off the line. If others wanted to stay in dialogue, you're welcome to do that. We had time until 8 p.m. But if not, find us on YouTube, as well as we'll make sure that you get the presentation in the next couple of days, and that becoming via Tisha.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining.
Okay, if there's no more questions, then I will conclude and you'll get more information from us. So thanks again, Rhea. Thank you for participating. You guys have a great night.
Okay, good night.
Good night.